this is going to be powerful, but I'm going to give this meaning. It's going to help me or help someone else in the future because I'm learning this lesson.
That's good.
And that has given me peace in the chaos.
Yeah, man.
Doesn't mean I like the chaos.
Oh,
I'm not looking for it. I don't want it. Stay away from me. But I feel like that strategy has given me a sense of like, okay, this eventually will pass, and hopefully I'll have some tools and knowledge based on that.
That's good, man.
Do you wish, do you ever think about it and wish you would have tackled differently, or are you grateful with everything that's happened the way it's happened?
You know, to be honest, man, somebody comes up to me almost every week and say to me, like, be honest, man, you said you wouldn't change what happened to you. Like, be honest. Like, you said you wouldn't change what happened to you. Why? Right? Because for most people, when they look at adversity and opposition, if a person goes through something that's traumatic, right, trauma, whatever the case may be, the average person's perspective is going to go to a space and place. What did you lose? How did it affect you? What did you have to sacrifice? What did you have to give up? People very rarely will ask the question, man, what did you learn from it?
What did you gain?
What did you gain?
Ooh.
Right? How did it make you a better person? I know it didn't feel good. That's obvious. I know it hurt, right? I know you didn't like it. It wasn't convenient. But like, what did you gain from it? I just want to know, right? From the loss, from the pain, right? And so for me, it was such a traumatic experience to where I was searching for the good. It was so traumatic.
There is no good.
Right?
Yeah.
It was so traumatic to where I'm like, all right, God, like, what is this, man? This hurts. Like, I don't like this. Like,
I have been there. I'm in it now. Hard times. You're just like, what is this? Why me? What's going on? How did I do this to myself? Did God do this to me? Is this who I'm supposed to be? Is this my experience in life? And you're like, bruh, this can't be it. At the same time, you got to be like, wow, but I'm strong enough to go through it. And every single time I've been in a bad situation, I came out alive. I survived. And I may not thrive every time, but I lived through it. Those hard times, those failures do not live through me. I got the scar, but I'm not still in pain. I'm still not. Come on, man.
Why did this show up at this point in time? I remember being like, God, just let me make it to the NFL, get the contract,
give me a few
help
years.
my family, and then like we could go through something like, just let me help my mom, help my grandma, help my cousins. Like when I was a kid, man, I remember saying to my cousins, like, if I make it to the league, man, we can get our own beds one day, right? We just wanted our own beds, right? Right? And so when it happened, I remember seeing certain things happen that it caught my attention, right? But I was so in the midst of what had happened to me that it just caught my attention. I think the beautiful thing about adversity and opposition, when you live with it, it teaches you, right? If you're open to it, right? When you live with challenges, it teaches you.
I would like to submit for your consideration that challenges, adversity, hard times are forms of accountability from the universe that are asking you to become the person that you were destined to be, or for you to recognize the strength you already have in you, or for you to just prove to yourself and prove through to the universe you are able, you are capable. And it's like, if you're not tested, you're not battle tested, how do you know you can make it through the fight?
And so the reason that I wouldn't change what happened to me or go back and even change the incident is because of not only the man that it shaped and molded me into, but the way it's impacted those close to me, right? My mother and my father, their relationship was fractured. Majority of
I would love to go through a hard time, even though I'll probably about it the entire time. But I'd love to go through a hard time if it means I become a better man because of it.
in my life.
Yes.
Like I'm talking about.
Were they living together or no?
No, like never, right? And so they couldn't even.
How many kids does your mom have?
My mom just got me and my sister.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so my dad, he's married, and he has 2 daughters as well. But when they had me, they were teenagers, right? And so my dad's trying to figure it out. Yeah. Mom is trying, young, right?
They don't have tools. They don't know how to connect with each other or communicate or
none of that.
Deal with conflict.
None of that, man.
Act like a child, essentially.
That's it. Act like a child, have a child.
Yeah.
And so it created a lot of hurt, a lot of resentment. on both ends. And so for me, when I started growing up, I had a level of resentment toward my father that I very rarely spoke about. And so I would speak to him and we would be cordial when we got to the point of communication. But for a long time, I resented him. And so my mother and my father could very rarely be in a room and it be peace.
Right.
Very rarely. When my injury happened, they had to be in a room. It had to be peace because it was a much bigger issue at hand. They didn't know if they were going to have to amputate they didn't know any of that, right? But fast forward a bit, what's happened not only in my life, but in my family's life, it's been phenomenal. Like my mother and my father can be in the same space and place, in the same room, wonderful grandparents. My father came and lived with me for 30 days after my injury under the same roof, helped take me to rehab for my arm, take me to class, wash my clothes, like what it did for our relationship, what it did for my family's relationships, what it did for me and my buddies, my friends, right? Guys tying my shoes, our connection, what that produced. Like it was phenomenal, right? The way it shaped and molded my perspective in my life and how I treat people, right? Not that I was a bad person before, because I wasn't. It's just the way that it shaped and molded my perspective and how I view this thing called life every single day, right? Because of what you just spoke about. When you go through something, I asked the guy this, Louis, I was in St. Louis speaking, pandemic, one of my live trips during the pandemic. And I said, can somebody tell me something good that's happened as a result of the pandemic? Lady stands up. She says, my mother lives in Japan. I get to speak to her every single day. I know if I was working the same schedule, I never would have got the opportunity to have those moments. Gentleman stands up in the back of the room. My man looked like he's supposed to have been in the movie 300. Traps up to his ears, to my yoked up, Louis, right?
Was that me?
Starts bawling. And he says, I'm thankful I got to watch my first child being born. Crying. He said, I knew for a fact if I was working the same schedule, I never would have got the opportunity to witness that moment. He said, what's something you're thankful for, Ink? I said, man, I'm thankful for 3 p.m. He said, why 3 p.m.? I said, man, I get to race cats and be the first one in the carpool line, right? He was like, the carpool line, really? I was like, yeah, the carpool line. I was like, but not the carpool line. He was like, what you mean by that? I said, the carpool line is extremely important. I get to pick my kids up from school most days. Phenomenal. Love it, right? I said, but more than that, it's about, can I condition my mindset and my perspective that when uncertainty happens, opposition happens, adversity happens, I can put my mind, my perspective in a space and place to extract some good, right? And so with adversity and opposition with my arm, I got a paralyzed right arm and hand. My perspective, my drive, my dedication, my commitment, my essence, my ethos, the thing that makes me Ink, it never got paralyzed. That was just my identity in sport.
Yes.
That's what people knew me by in sport. But who I am as a man, that never got paralyzed, right? I'm extremely grateful for that. My right arm and hand gets paralyzed. I get to go to disability services and learn how to write with my left arm and hand. Like I get to try different things, right? I get to go up to the Mayo Clinic, and my first visit there, I sit down and I come out of a room to where they had just shot 4 needles in my back, full of dye. I'm talking about biggest needles I've ever seen in my life. I sit down, I'm feeling sorry for myself. A little kid had to be 10 years old. Sits down, I don't know what the condition was. A mother sits down on one side of her, father sits down on the opposite side of her, and it's like they're holding skin up on her face. And I was like, man, I just got an arm and a hand. But I got put in those environments, and I got to see that. Extremely thankful and grateful. Most people don't get to see things like that on a daily basis. That conditions the mindset and the perspective to look for good in the midst of adversity, opposition, or uncertainty. I tell people all the time, man, the easiest thing in the world to do is to be negative.
So easy.
Easiest thing in the world to do is complain. Easiest thing in the world to do is to quit. That's easy. Me and you both can walk out of this building and see something on the streets of LA and say, man, that's whack, and complain about it. Or we can look at it and say, you know what, man, that's really unfortunate. But if they did this, if they can change this about it, I think that can be a beautiful situation.
Yeah.
That's a gift and that's a talent that not everybody has. And it's extremely underrated. Extremely underrated.
Yeah.
But it's extremely powerful when used in the right manner. So.
How did you
Man, I think that's incredibly powerful, and I want to thank Inky Johnson for coming here on the Self Reflection Podcast, Vlogcast, right here on YouTube, where we are looking at how we can reflect upon our lives to make self improvement, self motivation, and find motivation for self improvement so we can continuously progress ourselves. It's progress over perfection. My name is Professor Miles. I think this was phenomenal to see Inky Johnson talking about his story, who he is, who he's been able to become. We skipped past a certain part of this. I just wanted to show snippets of it. I'll definitely put the link to the original video up here. But one thing that I like to say is I think Inky Johnson has a great way of being able to show us that there's a difference between our mind, our body, and our soul, and that just because some parts of your body don't work doesn't mean that your soul, your spirit, your essence of who you are as a human being does not have to change. And you want to be able to have a mindset that says, despite the adversity, despite the challenges, despite the changes that might be able to come about in life, it doesn't really matter because I'm going to be able to respond and be able to know that I'm the same person and I'm going to make it through. And something that even Lewis House says, which I really want to harp on, you didn't had hard times before. You didn't been through hard times before. But guess what? You made it through them. You survived them. You're on the other side. They did not defeat you. Or even if they defeated you, let's say they did not destroy you. You are still here. So congratulations on being great. Congratulations on living your life. Congratulations on making sure that you're putting your best foot forward. I thank you for coming here. And remember, you don't got to be perfect. You do not have to be perfect. But I do want you to make progress.